Hey, Michael, how are you?
What's going on?
How you doing?
Oh, now what squad are you repping right there?
This is a Dutch. This is Johan Cruyff, the Dutch player. His I went to Amsterdam and got his shirt.
Okay, I just want to have my understanding of what squad we were rocking with right now.
I'm a Liverpool guy normally.
Okay, all right. Well,
Yeah, yeah.
a bunch of my fam is Man City folks, so
Uh,
I can get down that way.
well, you got New York City FC in the Bronx, so
There you go. There
yeah,
you go.
yeah. Well, we got Michael Blake. He's running for Congress in the Bronx, former assemblyman. Represented the Bronx for what was it, 6 years, I
Six,
think it was,
6 years.
and worked in the Obama administration, ran for mayor, and now you're running for Congress against Richie Torres. B before we before we talk about the Bronx, I wanna talk, are you in Minneapolis? I know you said you're going to Minneapolis.
We stayed here. There was we had a great endorsement that happened today of Mayor Ras Baraka endorsed us today.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, Newark.
So we've been keeping things local today itself. So, but we'll still get back out there. We were in L.A. last week for Keith Porter,
Right.
but was able to stay local here today.
No, that's good. I mean, it's rough out there. I mean, and Richie Torres, he suggested, I don't know if you've seen it in LA. I mean, there's a lot of ice out there, but they're wearing QR codes. That's his big suggestion.
Yeah, it's a pretty dumbass idea when you think about it, right? Like the for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, what Jordan's referencing is Richie Torres's suggestion is that every ICE agent should have a QR code so you can scan them to identify them. So just think about that. So hey, Mr. Agent, can you slow down for a second? Let me take out my phone that you don't know if it's anything, right? And try not to shoot me as I scan your QR code, right? And let's also be real. Like we know very clearly who Greg Vivino was. We saw him on camera. We're seeing ICE agents and Border Patrol agents do it. It's just not serious. And I think honestly, it's another indication of Richie not being serious about the work.
Yeah, I mean, so he ran in 2020 when you ran, and he was he won the primary that year. And I think like he presented himself as a very different candidate, a very different person, and he was very different when he was in New York City politics. And so what have you seen? Like what have you seen the transformation of Richard Torres? Because I think he's not what a lot of people thought he was gonna be.
Well, look, this is how I always know he was. That's why we ran against him the first time, and we want to give people that clarity in this regard. You know, let's talk about why I'm running, and then I'll answer your question about Richie. I'm running because we deserve better in the Bronx. I'm running because we are tired of being seen as the poorest communities. We're tired of people looking at us with disrespect. We're tired of immigrants and diverse communities not being empowered the way that we need to be. And so I want to give people a new vision. Right. I want to talk about how you can raise wages and you can reduce costs and reimagine the Bronx. Right. I want to talk to you about how we should be able to protect our immigrants and not deport our immigrants. And so, to your question about Richie, you have someone in Richie Torres who voted for the Lake and Riley Act, which would increase deportations by ending due process. Richie Torres, the same person who voted to express gratitude for ICE. Richie Torres, who voted in the minibus bill just recently, which would give more funding to Border Patrol agents. Richie Torres, while I cross endorsed with Zoran Mamdani, Richie Torres refused to endorse Zoran Mamdani. He endorsed Andrew Cuomo and then would not endorse Zoran in the general election. When I have been consistently standing up for our community groups and criminal justice advocates, Richard Torres flipped on criminal justice advocates and families on the Right to Know Act, so that, ironically enough, Jordan, that NYPD did not have to produce their IDs and badges during an arrest. So think about that. You went from someone who flipped on families in that regard is now saying you should scan QR codes. So at the end of the day, this about having not just any Democrat, it's about having the right Democrat. And I'm very clearly giving people a vision here in the Bronx. It's the reason why we have the endorsements that we have. It's the reason why more endorsements are going to happen this week. It's the reason why more endorsements are going to be coming very quickly. That if you are tired of the Fetterman of the House, which is Richie Torres, then my name is Michael Blake. I'm asking that you go to michaelblakeforcongress.com, donate, sign up, and join us so we can show that the Bronx deserves better.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about your background. You spent a lot of years in the assembly. You worked for President Obama, candidate Obama, right? You were there for kind of from the beginning. So tell me about like how you got to this point in your journey.
I'm a Bronx kid, right? Born and raised. I mean, let's see if I can move this around. You asked me about Obama right there. So, yeah, getting the full vibes out here. Well, you can see there was Obama picture right there. Uh, right? This is when I worked for him. Yeah, let's go. There we go. So this is in the Roosevelt Room. Us leading the meeting with black electeds there. Uh, we got a photo here when we had just won the re-election in Chicago. If any of you got some time, By the People. This is a movie. We got a lot of nominations for it to talk through the story of what's going on, and then the work continues here. Let's see. Let's angle it that way. There we go. All right.
Pretty cool.
Work continued that way, right? So in the Oval Office, and so you know, it's been a blessing. To your question, Jordan, right? Um, but I'm a Bronx kid
So then you
through and
went.
through.
So then you went to the assembly, and you worked on a bunch of different bills, a lot of stuff with criminal justice, education funding, and whatnot. Like you got a pretty hefty record there. So tell me a little bit about that.
I appreciate you showing love right now, right? So, I was in the assembly for 6 years, and we did some major things, right? We were able to change the game in a lot of different ways, right? The prompt pay bill so that business got paid faster, in particular, minority-owned business, small businesses. The My Brother's Keeper bill, so that we're still the only state in the country that black and brown boys can go to school and graduate from school and get more funding towards that. A co-sponsor on Raise the Age so that 16 and 17-year-olds are not tried as adults any longer because Khalid Browder was our constituent. What we did around the DREAM Act, standing up for choice, standing up for environmental justice. Those are the kinds of things that we did. I chaired the Mitchell-Lama subcommittee so that we could address waiting lists because people were getting jumped on waiting lists, and historic funding when it came to public housing, and saying we were sick and tired of people not having heat and hot water. And so we've done the work, right? We've done the work. And now we want to take that next step. And so what people are asking us now, well, why make this run with all things going on in the country? Because as we're watching, in particular around ICE, not all Democrats are being real Democrats right now, right? And we have to be willing to be very clear in how we step it up for our people. How could I be a son of Jamaican immigrants, a full name Michael Alexander Blake, named after Michael Manley and Alexander Bustamante, be a co-sponsor and dream, do all these different things. And then when we see a candidate consistently supporting ICE to deport immigrants, no, they got to go. They got to go.
I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, you were vice chair of DNC, for a while. So you're a Democratic Party guy through and through. But the Democratic Party has not, in a lot of ways, stood up to the plate. And so you're watching from back, watching Ritchie Torres, watching leaders, how they're responding. Like, what is your impression? Let's say you get in the majority. You win this race, right? You win. You're the congressman from New York 15. Democrats flip the House. So it looks like probably going to happen. We'll see. What do you do? What do you differently on ICE first, and all that stuff? First of all,
Repeal the Lake and Riley Act, which is the first bill that Trump signed into office, which Ritchie Torres voted for, which ends due process to increase deportations, even if you have not been convicted. So I just want people to internalize that, right? It was heinous what happened to Lake and Riley. Full stop. But what we should not be doing is criminalizing immigrant communities because of that.
right?
And so we got to repeal the Lake and Riley Act. We have to establish and ensure that safe havens are the case when it comes to community centers and schools and places of worship so that ICE are not entering into these properties. We have to be very intentional around enforcing the anti-masking law happening in New York. The same way they had masks where you can't have a mask up on a train, then that means I should not be able to wear a mask when I'm going around, right? We have to have a true pathway to citizenship to actually make sure we're helping people get those opportunities. We have to make sure we have funding so that immigrants have lawyers at these hearings to have the legal representation that you deserve. So if we take those kinds of steps, we can be very real about that, right? And look, I treat this in this moment where even if you voted on some of these bills before, you have an opportunity to acknowledge, okay, I didn't do this right, and I could do this differently. I mean, that's the responsibility of any leader, and it's no different than when I talk about the Middle East. People will ask me, well, you know what, Michael, you went on an AIPAC trip, you did those things before. Where are you at now? Yeah, I learned. I learned. Right? I learned. I was able to spend time. I was able to come back. I learned. You can't ignore a genocide that's happening. I learned. You can't ignore that now the IDF is even acknowledging more than 70,000 people who were killed. I learned. I learned because one of the people that was killed, being Zomi, who worked for World Central Kitchen, helped us during the Bronx and World with COVID. And so, it's about that responsibility. So I tie it to your question, Jordan, because at the end of the day, How can we continue to watch what's happening, whether it be LA with Keith Porter Jr., whether it be in Minnesota with Renee Good and Alex Preddy? How do we continue to watch these things happen and not do something more when it comes to what's going on with ICE?
What do you think it is? Why do you think that it's been such you know, and not every Democrat's been like that. There's been a lot of good ones, right? People have stepped up and talked, but generally the party has not really responded in a way that I think a lot of constituents, you, me, like people who are regular voters, people who are just out in the streets in Minneapolis, right? How they would expect them to respond. So, someone who's been in DC, someone who's been inside those rooms, like, what do you think it is that holds back that bigger response?
Lack of courage, right? We're talking about humanity right now, right?
Yeah,
Right. So, like, you got 5-year-old Liam Ramos. Yeah, yes, he's back home. He should have never been taken in the first place,
that was
right?
heartbreaking. I got a
Uh,
3-year-old man. I was seeing those photos were just
I mean, it's just like, come on, like, what are we doing? So it's like you're just in this zone now of, um, what more do you need to see, right? What more do you need to know? And to that point, um, look, we think about when it comes to ICE, it's a rogue agency. Yeah, Jordan, can I just respond to this
yeah.
guy has been trying to come for me on social media the last few days. So yeah, um uh so let's just be very clear to anyone that's wondering about what's happening in the chat here. Um as I said earlier in the chat, if he was on time, he would have heard. But the dynamic of learning and growing is where we're at here, right? Um, and there are many people, not just me, who have been at AIPAC events or trips and then learned, especially after what's going on in the Middle East, and said enough is enough and changed their ways. I think every single person, if we're all being honest with ourselves, has made a significant life change when you learn something new on whatever the topics may be, even if it took you some time to get there. And so, yeah, to the question about um, the acknowledgement to Guy's point that's being stated here. Uh, if he were to go back, I actually condemn the comments he made initially around the death of the Israeli embassy officers. And we acknowledge that there was a mistake in including him in the video. So I acknowledge that originally. Uh, but where are we at now? I have said and continue to say that a genocide is happening. Continue to say that it is inhumane that so many resources, including just recently another, I think, 3.3 billion being spent and sent over when people are trying to figure out how to pay their bills. And it's very tied to what's going on in the country here, right? We should be utilizing our resources to help our people.
Yeah, 100%. And for people who don't know, who Guy is, he's an activist, and he says some shitty things about what after there were people killed in the Israeli museum or embassy, I think, in DC. And it's look, I'm Jewish. I'm very against the genocide and the war, that's happening in Israel. It's one of the reasons why I'm so against Ritchie Torres. The way he's been so pro it. It's always been weird to me. Like, why? I mean, I guess I know why, but I've always been so weird about it, and so I've always felt so strange about it. And so I very much align with you. Growing up, there's you're taught certain things about Israel, and it takes a long time to learn something differently, right? Whether you're a pastor, I mean, there's a lot of things you or Reverend, sorry, there's a lot of things that
Yeah.
you learn. And you got to unlearn. And I did that too. And I think that Guy, but sometimes, the difference between being okay with someone being murdered, right, and saying there shouldn't be a genocide. And Guy was praising people who work for Israel being murdered in the United States. And I think that something that we don't need to like. I'm going to condemn. I could, and he ended up in your video somehow, and you said, that was a mistake. And so if he wants to go around being proud that, he said people should be murdered, I don't really know. Like he's welcome to watch, but he's not really doing himself much good in the eyes of humanity. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah,
And if I can just and I appreciate Jordan you saying that, right? Like and it's the reason why there are many leaders, whether it be Palestinian, whether it be Jewish, whether it be Muslim, Christian, et cetera, who are aligning with us. Um, I'm an ordained reverend who has baptized people in the Jordan River, prayed with Jews, Christians, and Muslims at the Western Wall, led the Sermon on the Mount itself. Um, Jesus was a Palestinian Jew and a refugee in a foreign land. So when people ask me, like, well, how did these trips change your life? I'm also born on Christmas Day, right? So, like, it's one of those things where, yeah, it is pretty transformative for a person who's an ordained Christian reverend to go to Israel. But it also, at the same time, I can recognize that disagreeing with governmental action does not make you anti a people,
Yeah.
right? Like me saying very clearly that I don't get down with any of this Trump shit, that would not lead to someone saying, oh my God, you're anti American and be treated seriously, right? And I think too often what's happening right now in these conversations, specifically what's going on in the Middle East, it does not make you anti-Semitic and anti-Israel to say I am not getting down what's happening with the IDF itself, right? Full stop. And the broader degree that's happening for us as a people right now, I want folks to ask themselves, do you believe that a rogue agency should be able to move without accountability?
I mean, in Israel or the United States.
And you just did exactly where I was going right there, right? And so at the end of the day, we have to be very intentional that if you're saying it's no in one place, it'd be no in either.
Yeah, and I mean, God, you're welcome to keep asking questions. I think that I'm just not gonna endorse murder. I'm just not gonna say, like, that's it's not I'm gonna endorse not gonna endorse it being done by, Zionists. I'm not gonna endorse it being done by anybody. So, you can keep asking questions. I don't think we're gonna let you hijack the conversation anymore, but Michael, so you mentioned like being anti against what Netanyahu's doing, against what Israel's government's doing is not anti Semitism. I think that's a big thing, and I think Zoran got a lot of stuff for that last year as well. But it's not. I mean, I'm Jewish. I'm not anti-Semitic because I'm against what Israel's doing, and I think that like that conversation gets very difficult. And I'm wondering how has it been difficult to navigate? I mean, obviously you got people coming in from all sides.
Absolutely. But I mean, you shouldn't be doing this if you're afraid of doing things that are difficult, right?
Fair enough.
And look, uh, I have people who actually someone today hit me up and said that um, they can't get down with the conversations around ICE and Lake and Riley because effectively those people should not get help. Okay, well, that kind of nonsense, that's clearly not someone who I can get down with, right? And so where we're at right now is we've got to have some real conversations, right? We've got to have some real conversations about what are we thinking here. Case in point, when you have a minibus, which was the budget that happened last week, where within it you have funding towards staff at HUD being cut, given all the changes happening around housing. When you have a scenario where Border Patrol and DHS is getting more funding, you shouldn't be voting for that. It's really not that hard to me. But what happened a lot, Jordan, is that people were only talking about the other ICE bill, where it's like, oh, well, these 7 Democrats voted on this. Well, the other bill also gave funding as well,
Yeah.
right? And so these are the conversations that we have to have. And I will tell you, at the end of the day, when we think about what is happening as it relates to ICE, ICE has no damn business in our cities, right? ICE is a rogue entity that, because of the Lake and Riley Act, which again, it was the first bill that Trump signed when he came back in office, which ends due process to increase deportations. That alone should get you to say enough is enough. And that's one of the reasons why we're running, because at the end of the day, we got to fight for our people. People are pissed, and they rightfully should be. And they need to know that you're going to help them. And you're also going to give them real clear ideas. And when I talk through these ideas of here's what I want to do around ending credit scores, increasing income limits, and actually having a local median income, that helps you when it comes to housing. We want to have an immigrant bill of rights. That actually gives us protections. Let's expand out my brother's keeper and my sister's keeper so you can actually go to school and graduate from school. Let's actually ensure that you're not having places of worship, whether it be a shul, a church, or a masjid, being attacked and that not being at all appropriate. It's unacceptable and it's wrong. Being absolutely clear around what are we doing on transforming our communities for good and that we are investing in our communities in a very real way. But let me make it real plain. We should be protecting immigrants, not deporting immigrants. And if there's anything else that you take away from what I'm saying right now, you have someone in Ritchie Torres who not once, not twice, not three times, but four times at a minimum has taken stances that leads to the deportation, not just of immigrants, but the detainment of U.S. citizens, because we are watching right now American citizens also being taken off streets because of this absolutely shitty bill. So if you're listening and you're watching and you recognize that it doesn't matter where you are across the country, and quite frankly, swear, right? And, someone trying to rock right now. It's all good. And if you are a U.S. citizen living elsewhere, I'm asking you to help us and support us because any member of Congress, no matter where they live, impacts you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to take too much more of your time, but you mentioned it's funny because you mentioned all these things, right? Like around the act, you mentioned, the Israel stuff. Like he is a congressman from the Bronx, and there's a lot of immigrants there, and it's not a place. I know the Bronx has, a good Jewish population, but like I don't know. I mean, I live on Manhattan, so I'm not entirely sure what people are saying, but I don't know if there's a huge demand for like ICE or is support for Israel. And those are kind of the two things he's staked his career on. So I'm wondering, like, what are the things in the Bronx that people are talking about? Because I imagine that when it comes down to it, when it comes down to who they're going to pull a lever for, or who they're going to mark down on their ballot, you know, yeah, they're going to think about stuff with ICE and they're going to think about stuff with Israel, but like the stuff he hasn't spoken about, like what are the things that people care about right now in the Bronx?
I think affordability is hands down the top thing, right? Like, how do we pay your bills, right? How do you pay your bills? And I'm saying to folks, all right, let's do this. Look, let's bring in companies that will actually hire you and pay you at quality high wages, right? Let's actually reimagine what's going on with our college and careers, so that when you graduate from high school and you graduate from college, if you just choose to go to college, that you can actually have a pathway to economic opportunity, right? Let's transform the game, Jordan, so it's not just around seasonal jobs and retail jobs, but more continual jobs that are happening, and especially around technology, right? But when we think about this, housing and childcare. You have an opportunity where we have to find more ways to reduce the cost when it comes to childcare, have universal childcare, and expand that out across the board. And I'm giving a very clear vision of what we can be doing around housing. Richie Torres has now been in office, approaching 5+ years. Richie Torres has one bill that he's the prime sponsor that's become a law, and it's around fire safety. It's not around increasing your wages. It's not about reducing your cost of your home. It's not about protecting immigrants. It's about fire safety. Now, we have had fires in the Bronx. Yes, there's been fires all over the country, and it is unfortunate and it's unacceptable. But that shows you the lack of seriousness. And I do believe, though, in addition to how do we help you keep your home? How do we make sure you raise your wages? How do we make sure you have better schools? How do we protect our communities? How do we have a tax credit for the Black and brown women that have been fired by the federal government so that when they get hired, it actually supports that company? ICE, I do believe, is an absolutely essential argument on who you're voting for this year. Did this person stand up against or stand in support of ICE? Richie Torres has repeatedly been in support of ICE. Can't walk away from it.
What's amazing to me is that even before they did the whole, we're going to occupy Minneapolis, even before they went to Chicago, right? Like your district is like a lot of immigrants, right? It's not like a white suburban district, right? So
Right.
I don't know what brings him to do that, to support that.
Because Richie Torres, by his own acknowledgement publicly, was considering running for governor. And Richie Torres, when you go to, there's a story on Politico that says it's the Richie Torres deportation flip flop. He took that vote because he thought it would make him more appealing with Republicans and moderates upstate. He endorsed Andrew Cuomo, a man who resigned in disgrace, because he thought that these decisions would help him run for governor, which he acknowledged repeatedly that he was seriously looking at making a run for governor. He disrespected repeatedly Governor Hochul in every possible manner. And so Richie Torres voted in favor of bills to hurt immigrants because he thought it would help himself.
That's fair enough. And speaking of Governor Hochul, someone in the comments asking what do you feel about the ambition to restart the Indian Point nuclear plant.
It's something that has to definitely be considered, right? I mean, and but you got to do this properly and correctly because look, nuclear energy is something that is not going to go away anytime soon, and it is part of our collective ecosystem here. Um, uh, I was reading that thing right there itself, right? And so want to understand more of the specifics on how they're imagining this. Want to understand more of the details on how it's being looked at. But look, nuclear power is clearly something that's a part of our ecosystem that has to be considered. Disrespecting Kathy Hochul is the first good thing you've accused Torres of.
Well, maybe not a huge Kathy Hochul fan.
Oh man, okay. That's why I had to do a double take on what Paul was saying right there. I had to do a double take right there, right? But look, I think not think I know. Right. Yeah, and Jordan, I appreciate all that you're doing, man. Like, you're being a necessary voice in the progressive space for our country, and I'm grateful for you. We're grateful for you. Uh, I tell people the same energy you all have about John Fetterman. Keep that same energy about Richie Torres, right? And you have someone who, if I were to tell you the number one job you're supposed to have as a legislator is passing bills and getting them signed into law. He can't tell you that. He can't tell you that the positions he's taken are aligned and in line with the Democratic Party. Can't tell you that. Can't tell you that he's willing to make a change in position when he's wrong. Can't tell you that. And so at the end of the day, what I can tell you is that if you want to choose something better, I'm in front of you. Right?
One last question for you. So there's a strike right now throughout the city. 15,000 nurses are on the picket line.
Yeah.
Some of them are in the Bronx, and so I'm curious. I'm someone who's dealt a lot with healthcare, dealt with surgeries and whatnot. Curious, what your thoughts on that strike are, supporting organized labor, and then just healthcare generally. I mean, its system is so messed up. But what would your approach be?
I've had the honor of being on 5 picket lines with them already. Um, uh, certainly. Well, I think I want to come back to this. I absolutely welcome being briefed. I mean, again, that's a good lead. I welcome learning more information here itself. Um, uh, and I think my answer was effectively saying that I want to learn more about the proposal. So, but I welcome that, Milo, absolutely, to that degree. If you go to the website and then type into michaelblakeforcongress.com/support, then we could follow up with you there, Milo. So I appreciate that. Um, uh, as it relates to the nurses, right? You have a scenario here which is very telling, right? Largest employer. My daddy worked at St. Barnabas Hospital. He was a janitor. Um, God rest his soul. My mom, 2-time breast cancer survivor. Uh, I was born with a heart murmur in North Central Bronx Hospital myself, right? And when we think about the opportunity that exists right now, oh, my phone's going to need a nurse right there. There we go. Right. Uh, when we think about the opportunity that exists right now, there we go. We're back, y'all. Around nurses. Oh, there we go. That's the second time. Jordan, I'm gonna figure out that's the second time. That doesn't happen to me out here. I don't know why it keeps doing that
I
there,
don't
right?
know.
You
So,
know, uh, yeah, so it's all good. So everybody, so again, as it relates to the nurses, right? They're demanding safe staffing, which has to happen, so that you do not have a scenario where you have too many patients to the nurse. It's something that I was a co-sponsor on in the assembly. They are rightfully demanding protections against workplace violence, which is very real. They are absolutely demanding and deserve to have coverage break care so that you're not in a scenario where you cannot take a break because you have so much that's happening at the same time. The nurses are rightfully demanding for insurance protections. And when we think about this from our ancestors, right? Like, I mean, they did strikes for a year and years, right? Because they were fighting for the right causes. And I think it's essential. I think it's commendable. I've been out there at every Bronx site, and I've been there more than once. You know, and it is important that people know that you're real, right? A lot of people could show up one time and then do a video or do a tweet and keep it moving. Um, I've been there multiple times, and they know that, right? And they know that. And when COVID happened, I spent a lot of my time going out to hospitals to get out PPE, get out food because the nurses were the heroes, right? In many ways. And, there's a reason why nurses are always the highest respected profession, right? Uh, and that's no shade on other professions, no shade on our teachers, no shade on others in that. But like, you think about it, right? Like it's a person that most people don't ever want to go to a hospital, right? They are the front line in helping you, and all they're saying is to help us, and that's what we
Absolutely.
did. That's what they deserve, and that's what we're going to do. And if you give us the chance to go to Congress and represent the Bronx, we're going to do that for our nurses, and not just in the Bronx, but across the city.
As how do people find you on the internet campaign?
Rock, come up to the Bronx, everybody. Right, come up to the Bronx. We want you. We need you. I'm asking anything you could do. If you heard anything you liked tonight, go to our website, michaelblakeforcongress.com. Donate, sign up to volunteer. You're going to see some more endorsements happening this week. We welcome that. We need y'all right now. Uh, we're ready to do something special. Ready to do something special. Petitions begin. Absolutely, we want doors knocked on, right? We want people to be knocking on doors and making phone calls itself. If you go to michaelblakeforcongress.com/support, you'll see that on the site there. You could sign up there on how to canvass and knock on doors, how to make phone calls for us. We need you right now. We need you, everybody, to be able to do this and bring this home in a very real way. You got a lot of candidates out here itself, but if we tell the story on how we raise wages, reduce costs, and reimagine the Bronx, we'll be able to bring this home. So, absolutely, to Paul and everybody else, please donate what you can, $15, $25, 50, 100, whatever it may be. But also knock on doors and make phone calls with us. Maybe if we're lucky, maybe Jordan will come up to the Bronx. Come up from Manhattan, come to the
I'd be
Bronx.
happy. Hop on the 6 train. Put
Come
it up
on,
there.
get on that 6 train. We'll make some moves. We'll go to Mount Haven and we'll make some moves from there.
I'm there. I'm there, man.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
All
I appreciate you.
right. Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Later.